Makhachev criticizes Gaethje, Covington with heavy words towards Garry, and a fight night loses its main event. These are today's topics. My name is Flo, welcome to the championship rounds. First of all, Mark Coleman is breathing by himself. His daughter Kenzie first announced the news on his Instagram account. Later, an emotional video was published showing the family visiting him in the hospital. While Coleman was not yet conscious, the family had already set up a GoFundMe page. This may seem unnecessary to some now, but the entire house has burned down. If they don't have an excellent insurance, the financial damage of this story will still be very large, even if Mark can be released from the hospital very soon. If you want to get involved, you'll find the link to this program in the description of this video. Maybe you will remember, Garry had challenged Colby Covington after his last fight against Geoff Neal. I believe he also mentioned wanting to fight once more after that, before then fighting for the title. Nothing happened for a long time after this call-out, but suddenly Colby released a video addressed to Garry and his wife. He immediately starts with trash talk, questioning the extent to which Garry was really sick before his last cancelled fight against Luke. He says Garry got the sniffles, despite Garry having a rather severe pneumonia. Many MMA fans may not like Garry too much anymore due to various actions in the past, but one thing regarding him brought up a lot of discussions in recent weeks. His wife, Layla Machado. She is significantly older, was a long-time sports reporter, and is now also his manager. What led to various trash talks was that during her time as a reporter, she wrote the book How to Be a Wag, a wife and girlfriend of a famous athlete. And now she is one, and people say she's only with Garry because of this plan. I have never read the book. Since it became a topic, the woman said it was only just satire. I think I've heard that the book is only 10 pages or so, and looking at the cover, it is believable that it is not meant too seriously, but what do I know? Anyways, this is the reason Covington addressed Layla in the course of the video and not Garry himself. He says he sets 3 requirements and will only accept the fight if these are met. For one, Garry should activate his comments on Instagram. He amends this of course because he knows how many MMA fans would do trash talk against Garry. For the second requirement, he then turns directly to Garry's wife, calls her a whore, and says she should beg on her knees for 60 seconds that Colby accepts the fight, as she anyways makes the decisions in the marriage. And third, he says that Garry would have to watch as she gets her 50 seconds of fame after Colby wins the fight. He does not become explicit, but I think we know what he means. Definitely harsh words. I personally find it extremely tasteless, but that's personally up to everyone to judge, I guess. But although Colby says something about them having 24 hours to respond and they haven't done it yet, I'm sure that's all just trash talk to market the fight already. So on a rational level, we can just summarize. Colby seems to accept the challenge from Garry. Would certainly be an interesting matchup. Marvin Vettori has cancelled his scheduled fight against Brandon Allen. He recorded a video saying he is hurt but did not name a specific injury. Allen, who is currently number 5 in the middleweight, then challenged everyone ranked above him. So Cannonier, Whittaker, Strickland and Adesanya. So the fight night on April 6 currently has no main event, and there is no matchup scheduled besides that has the name value to replace it. So the UFC will therefore urgently look for an opponent for Allen. Strickland is someone I could in theory imagine accepting such a fight on short notice, but of course some lower ranked middleweights will also just recognize their chance and offer themselves. If Strickland does not accept the fight and there are big arguments against it, Allen will almost be forced to fight one of them. I am thinking of people like Anthony Hernandez, Nassourdine Imavov, Jack Hermanson, Chris Curtis, such people. What was also a bit interesting regarding Strickland and could lead to bigger plans were 2 tweets. Strickland complains that Adesanya was given a direct rematch against Pereira, although he was knocked out and Strickland lost a close decision, so he also demands his chance to regain the title. At the same time, Du Plessis asked his fans who they would like to see against him next, Strickland or Adesanya. To what extent the UFC decides on this will probably also play a decisive role in whether Strickland would accept the fight against Allen. So the first question is whether the UFC decides who fights for the title in the nearest future. I feel like they will not, which is why I would rather rule out Strickland against Allen. So it remains exciting to see who it will be. Islam Makhachev gave an interview to Mike Boone from MMA Junkie and made a bunch of interesting statements. He talked about that he was actually offered the fight against Leon Edwards for UFC 300. He said he would have loved to accept the fight but really could not due to Ramadan. He also mentioned that he does not find it right how many champions aim for the double champ status without clearing their divisions. A bit of ironic, I find, considering he also only defended his title against a featherweight so far. He also justified his interest in fighting Poirier. Like many fans, he also says that Dustin does not really deserve the title fight, considering he was finished by Gaethje in July. But Islam says Dustin is a legend and all other lightweights are booked. Other options would be missing. This also brings him to talk about Gaethje and his fight against Holloway. He says it's a pointless fight for a worthless belt. Of course the fight is attractive to fans, but both made a mistake in accepting this matchup. Gaethje risked his chance to fight for the title. That could have been his next fight instead of Poirier, but if he loses against Holloway, that chance is gone. Likewise, Holloway made a mistake. He could have benefited from the title change in featherweight. Maybe he could have been the one fighting Topuria next. Islam also says the fight between Tsarukyan and Oliveira is a 50-50 fight for him. Since both challenged him so vehemently, he would be open to fight the winner. After that, he himself would want to move up to welterweight. Besides that, Devin Haney became an athlete sponsored by Prime. The medical suspensions after UFC 299 were published. Nothing particularly long there. Chito Vera announced that his house was robbed during the event, very bitter, and the manager of Jack Della Maddalena said that Jack broke a bone in his forearm early in the fight against Gilbert Burns. He also showed an X-ray image of it. Then it was also announced, which there had been rumors about already, Jorge Masvidal will fight Nate Diaz again in June, this time in boxing. They will box for 10 rounds at 175 pounds. If you read some comments under the announcement, not many people seem excited about it. I found the first fight very clear and only gave Nate chances over his grappling. If you now even take away the chance to work from the clinch, I don't know, but the fight is set. Of course it will be a great chance for Masvidal to demand the fight against Jake Paul afterwards. I think that's the plan in his team. Gabi Garcia is also back in MMA. In case anybody is interested, she will fight at Centurion FC in Sao Paulo on April 25. She fights against Barbara Nepomuceno, which seems to be a rematch. In 2018, Garcia already defeated her at Ryzen. According to Topology, Garcia weighed in at 226 pounds for that fight. For Nepomuceno, also according to Topology, it was her first and to date only MMA fight. She seems to be a kickboxer. Otherwise, there were no really big fight announcements in the UFC. Nasrat Haqparast fights Jaron Gordon in Saudi Arabia on June 22. Jonathan Pierce fights David Onama on April 27. And at UFC 302 on 1st of June, Grant Dawson and Joe Solecki will face each other. With this information, I already end today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, feel free to subscribe to not miss any future episodes. And with that being said, see you next time.